What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today we are continuing our Hidden Gems series on the channel, and we are going to be visiting the wide receiver position today. We're going to go ahead and give you guys a good list of wide receivers to be on the lookout for various needs within your franchise mode. These are going to be primarily players that you can get for lesser amounts of trade capital and bring them into your teams and build them up to be good wide receivers on your team. Now, wide receiver is a position that actually has a pretty fair number of hidden gem type of players. It's not as extensive as it has been in the past. There aren't as many players as I've liked in the past. However, there are quite a few good players, such as our first entry on the list today, who is Scotty Miller. Now, Scotty Miller is a player that most Buccaneers franchise owners are probably not going to part ways with for cheap, but he has to make this entry onto this list because he is sitting fourth string behind guys like Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Chris Godwin. So whatever this team decides to do at wide receiver, I know Antonio Brown's older. Regardless, though, Scotty Miller figures out as nothing more than a third wide receiver for this team. This is a player that is definitely going to be available no matter who a Buccaneers franchise owner is. It just may take a little bit more to get him off of their team. Now, I like him a lot as a slot wide receiver. You can also play him on the outside to stretch the field. He's a very good athlete, 94 speed. That's pretty much all we need to say about him, but he is 5'9", so you do have to keep that in mind, that you're getting a shorter player, a guy that's not going to be able to go up and get jump balls for you, but a guy that will stretch the field and get open just based on his athleticism alone. The next player on this list, for very similar reasons, is actually going to be Andy Isabella. Now, this is a player that I've liked for a couple of seasons. He's now 24 years old, so he's getting up there. He doesn't have a ton of developmental room left, much like Scotty Miller, 24 years old, but he is very good speed, 95 speed. He's 5'9", so a very similar player, only a 71 overall, probably cheaper than Scotty Miller. But again, not necessarily going to be the guy here for the Cardinals because of DeAndre Hopkins being in town, AJ Green being around, Christian Kirk, and then the drafting of Rondale Moore, who's another speed receiver. It really just kind of emphasizes the fact that Andy Isabella does not really have a place in this offense in franchise mode, so he'll certainly be a trade target for a lot of people. I would certainly be on the lookout for him. Now, again, his size may slow him down a little bit in terms of what he can do for your team, but he's a very good athlete, so I have him on this list as well. The next player on this list is going to be a true developmental type of player, and this is going to be Desmond Pittman. Now, the reason that I have Desmond Pittman on this list is because, again, there's a lot of players in front of him that I think are valuable. Guys like Ashton Dulin, Zach Pascal, Michael Pittman, even T.Y. Hilton still hanging around on that team, Paris Campbell when he comes back from injury. I think that Desmond Pittman, as a non-burner type of wide receiver, is actually going to offer quite a bit of value to a team that can utilize him. This is a 6'4", 225-pound wide receiver that's coming in at 23 years old and a 64 overall. He's the definition of a developmental type of player. He starts off with 89 speed and 90 acceleration, which is actually really good for a 6'4" wide receiver. And as a 23-year-old, as you start to get upgrades for this player, he'll get faster and faster. So that's always a good place to start. Now, the limiting factor here is going to be his agility and change of direction is only 79 and 77. So he's not going to be the greatest route runner in the world in terms of being able to change directions and get off of defenders and things like that. But he is a player that I think can add quite a bit of value if you put some time into developing him. And the next entry onto this list will be Jalen Hurts, wide receiver for the 49ers. Now, he is currently injured, so depending on what happens with your franchises, he may or may not be available to you, but he is a 25-year-old, 67 overall. I like him a lot because of his 6'4", 230 frame, combined with his athleticism. He does have good agility and change of direction in comparison to other similar receivers. 89 speed, 91 agility, 90 acceleration, and 84 change of direction. This is a guy that used to be a running back whenever he was in college. He transferred to Baylor. I believe he became a wide receiver. Now he's in the NFL. Hasn't really done much in the NFL. I think that if given the right team and scheme, that he could become a very good wide receiver. Now, in franchise mode, obviously the limiting factor here is he's 25 years old. You have to keep that in mind, but that just adds to the fact that you're probably going to be able to get him for very cheap within franchise modes, and a lot of users who probably don't know what they have in Jalen Hurts might just cut him or send him to the practice squad without really thinking about it. Next up will be a team entry to this list, and this will be the Giants wide receivers. Now, this is just the true take your pick of any wide receiver that you may want and try to make a trade offer for them. The Giants have everything you could want at wide receiver. They have the veteran in Sterling Shepard. They have Kenny Golladay. They have Darius Slayton, Kadarius Toney, John Ross, Dante Pettis, and they even have some young guys like Colin Johnson. They just have a slew of receivers, and they can't use them all. We're talking about at least 6 guys here that I think most teams would want. All the way up from Dante Pettis, all the way up to Sterling Shepard. You can take your pick of whoever you want. My main targets, honestly, on this team I'd be trying to get maybe John Ross or Dante Pettis. But if you're trying to get a veteran receiver, I think guys like Sterling Shepard could be a hidden gem type of a player, because this is a player that you could probably get for cheap. Because if you're a Giants franchise owner, you're saying, well, I'm starting Slayton, I'm starting Kadarius Toney, and I'm probably starting Kenny Golladay. You know what I mean? I'm starting my speedsters, the guys that can stretch the field, maybe mixing in John Ross, that type of stuff. And that means Sterling Shepard is available to you guys, and you can probably get him for cheaper than you would otherwise be able to get an 84 overall wide receiver that is honestly a really good player. 89 speed, 92 agility, 91 acceleration, and that's not even to mention that he's got good route running, good catching ability. He's a very, very solid player, so definitely keep in mind the Giants as a trade partner for wide receivers. Next up is going to be a similar situation in the Jets. This is going to be a team entry for the Jets wide receivers. Now, this doesn't have as much talent here on the Jets, but very similar situation with guys all the way up from Braxton Berrios, Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore, Keelan Cole, Jamison Crowder, and Corey Davis. Take your pick of which wide receiver you might potentially want. They have the veterans like Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder that you could potentially add to your team for a relatively reasonable price and not have to pay a lot, not have to give up a lot to get them. Or you could go after the younger guys like Denzel Mims, or you could go after the guy that I've been talking about for a while in Braxton Berrios. He is now 25 years old, but I still love his combination of speed and athleticism. His agility is 91, change of direction 88. He's a very, very good slot wide receiver. I've used him a ton. Again, another player that's 5'9", kind of limited by his size, but you might be able to go out and get a guy like a Denzel Mims, for example, depending on what this team is really trying to do with their receiving core. Or again, you could get one of those veterans. Certainly keep the Jets in mind as another potential trade target. And then the final team slot today is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, again, a team that just have a lot of youth, a lot of athleticism at that wide receiver position. We obviously know the likes of Marquise Brown. They have Sammy Watkins now. They also have Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, Miles Boykin, Tylan Wallace, all the way down to James Prush II. I don't know if I said that correct or not. Personally, if I was looking at this team and I was trying to target somebody, we know that Marquise Brown and the rookie Rashad Bateman are probably off limits. I would be looking at Devin Duvernay or Miles Boykin. Really, my target here that I think is worth a lot more than Ravens owners might realize is Miles Boykin. 6'4", but has 91 speed, 89 agility, and we're talking about a true athlete here. 87 change of direction. This guy is a built wide receiver. 6'4", 220 pounds, comes in at 24 years old, 71 overall. It's going to take some effort to get him up to a high overall and really impactful to your team, but he'll come in right away and make some catches for you because of his size and his athleticism. He just needs those other intangible skills built up. This would be my main target here, but you could also go after some of these other guys because they have so many different options at wide receiver in terms of youth. Now, these guys aren't the best in real life, but these can all be built up to be very good wide receivers within Madden. Getting closer to the end of our list, we are going to have Freddie Swain off of the Seahawks. Now, Freddie Swain is a very interesting player because he is a true build-up type of prospect, somebody that you're going to bring in and have to focus on. 23 years old, 68 overall, so a really good combination of age and overall there, but he does have good athleticism, 91 speed, only 84 agility, which is not too bad, but 90 acceleration and 82 change of direction. I just really like the fact that he has reasonable size for a guy that's this young and has reasonable athleticism. 6 foot is pretty solid. A lot of these guys that come into this build, a lot of these hidden gem type of players, end up being like 5'9". 6 foot is good enough to get you some contested catches. So this is a guy that I like quite a bit. He might cost you depending on what this team is trying to do. I think DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett probably lock up the first 2 slots. Dwayne Eskridge is injured, so maybe Freddie Swain slots in there. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with franchises in terms of this, but Freddie Swain is a name that you should definitely know at the very least. And the final 2 slots on this list are going to be occupied by players that I like quite a bit. Number 1, on the Titans, we have to scroll all the way down to the bottom of their wide receiving core, and you can already tell why this guy is potentially available because he's so far down the receiving list, is Racey McMath out of LSU. 6'3", 92 speed. Do I need to say anything else? It's obvious. I've picked him up multiple times and utilized him. He does currently have an injury, but 6'3", combined with that athleticism, he's almost a Chase Claypool type of build. You know, he's that athlete that can stretch the field. He's big, he's tall, he can come up with jump ball catches, combat catches. He does come in as a 22-year-old 63 overall, so a lot of times, like I said, he gets cut, he gets put on the practice squad. Currently, he's injured. This is a guy that you definitely have to be on the lookout for because if you can get him for free, definitely do it. He'll add some value to your team, and I guarantee you won't regret it. This is a guy that I've used and has turned out to be a huge steal this season. And then the next player is going to be on the Vikings, and it's another player that I've utilized in very similar regard, and that's Dan Chisena. This one's another obvious one. 6'3", 95 speed. I really don't need to say too much more. Very similar player, very often ends up out there in free agency or on the practice squad because of where he sits in terms of overall. This is a guy that you can take from 0 to hero very quickly though because of that build. 6'3" with 95 speed is absurd. And, you know, in real life, this guy may never amount to be a usable wide receiver in the NFL, but in franchise mode, he absolutely will. And he'll come in as a 60 overall and give you a ton of value. And that's not all, folks. Those are our 10 slots for today, but there are various wide receivers that I do want to point out in free agency. You guys can always find hidden gem wide receivers out here. The first one being a guy like Blake Prohl, out of East Carolina, 6'2", 90 speed, 91 acceleration, very solid athlete, very comparable to Dan Chisena and Racey McMath. This guy's going to be free because he's out there in free agency. There are also guys out here like Isaiah Coulter that I've used that I like quite a bit, 6'2" with 91 speed, a very good combination. We're not going to mention him, and we can keep going down. There's guys like Kawan Baker out of South Alabama, 6'1", 91 speed, only 23 years old at a 62 overall. There are various different players out here that add that type of value, and you know, to be honest with you, it's like a take your pick type of a thing. DeMichael Harris here as well. He's a shorter guy, but 23 years old, 65 overall, 92 speed. You can find just about anything you're trying to find out here at the wide receiver position. Obviously, like normal, speed is pretty much everything this year in Madden, but you can find other types of players that have height, that have whatever you're trying to look for at the wide receiver position. If you're looking for a good slot receiver, you could take no further look than Michael Walker. I like him. But that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, please make sure to leave a like on the video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All that stuff will help the algorithm and help keep continuing to grow this channel and push these videos out to anybody that can use them. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I hope you have a good one.